Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual Shocktober in Irvington, presented by the Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Join the hosts of the Obsessive Viewer on October 6th, 2017 at the Irving Theater for a one-night event screening of short horror films, including the premiere screenings of the latest film in J.P. Leck's cross-medium Elsewhere World universe, the latest film from Snapshot Productions, and much more. Come celebrate the horror genre in the historic Irvington area and meet the filmmakers with live Q&As after each screening. You can also win DVDs and Blu-rays, movie-related party games, horror-themed Funko Pop figures, gift cards to Irvington businesses, and so much more. Tickets are on sale now at shocktoberinirvington.com. All proceeds go directly to the Irvington Historical Society. And whether at the Irving Theater or in your nightmares, we will be seeing you on the 6th of October.
It's the Indiana Geeking Podcast with our very special guest, John Kennedy. Yay!
One day while investigating Cestus 3, an alien superpower kidnapped me and put me face to face with a dangerous enemy. How the hell did I get myself into this mess? They say we have to fight to the death, so I defend my life with every breath. If Buzz were in my shoes, he'd know what to do. He'd probably hit him with a half a spray or two, and then tell him jokes until he was subdued. Mr. Spock could take him out with one nerve pincher. Mind meld him into thinking that he's our friend. Either way, with Vulcan logic, he knew that it would be a cinch. Well, I put both hands together and swing like I'm holding a bat. And then I duck when he swings at me, karate chop him in the back. I don't know how I win, but I'll tell you what I'll do for the greater good of the Federation in the name of the Enterprise crew. I'm gonna kick his ass, kick his ass. 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 If only Mr. Sulu was standing here, he'd samurai slice him without any fear. And where's Charlie Evans when he needs someone to disappear? With a saucer look at her would lure him into a place where he'd have the room to defend, and he'd get her beat down by Nurse Chapel and Janice Rand. Well, I pick up a rock and I throw it at his chest, and it bounces off like styrofoam. He throws a boulder at my head. I figure out how to win, 'cause that's all I know how to do. For the greater good of the Federation in the name of the Enterprise crew. I'm gonna kick his ass, kick his ass. I need to kick his ass, kick his ass. I have to kick his ass, kick his ass. I wanna kick his ass, kick his ass. Challenge him to a duel with scotch and brandy were fighting tools, or maybe he just beam him inside of some solid rock. Well, I put my mind to it and I figured the weapon out, and just in the nick of time I became the victor in this bout. You knew that I would win because I always do. I'm James Tiberius Kirk, captain of the Enterprise crew, and I kicked his ass, kicked his ass. Well, I just kicked his ass, kicked his ass. No thanks to the Metro. I kicked his ass, kicked his ass. Girl, you know I kicked his ass, kicked his ass. I
Good day, my friends. The Indiana Geeking Podcast is back, and I have got another excellent local game designer and freelance writer. Go ahead, let you introduce yourself and let us know what you work on.
Hi, my name is John Kennedy. I'm with Third Eye Games, although I freelance with a lot of companies such as Modiphius Entertainment, Kenzer Co., who do Nights at Dinner Table Magazine, and just a whole lot of other places. I tend to just work for everybody if I can.
So, we're going to stick a pin in the whole, I never knew you worked for Kenzer Co., so we're going to stick a pin in that. We'll come back to that
Yeah, sure.
later. So, how did you get started doing freelance game writing?
Well, if you want the silly story or the real story, I'll start with the silly one first, so that then
We got time.
any listeners who need to use the restroom, you've got about like 45 seconds, so hurry on back. No, I was in the 5th grade, and I got a hold of Phantasy Star 4 for the Sega Genesis. It had been out for a while, but that was when I got it. And I love the game, and I thought it was the greatest game ever, and I still do. But I just remember I would sit in the back of class, and I would just draw in my notebook, and I started designing my own like maps in the game, and I started making these really awful drawings. I am not an artist by any means. Really awful drawings of like new villains to fight. And I think one that comes to mind was there was Darksaber, which was one of the grunts you fight. It's a JRPG, so you do a lot of grinding.
Yeah.
And I think I had like Power Saber. And he had a bigger saber than the other ones. And it's just all these goofy stuff. But I made new heroes for the game. And I made really bad drawings of them because even though I could see what they look like in my head, I could never really get them out on the paper. But I would give them stats, and I remember looking at Phantasy Star and looking at my favorite characters like Ren or Chaz, and I would be like, he would have a high attack value, but not as high as Chaz, but he would have more tech like Ren. And then I would just start doodling that in my notebook. And I remember a teacher, after I was done with my homework, she asked to see what I was doing, and I was just excited to like tell her about it. And I just remember her after like 2 minutes of just watching her eyes just glaze over, just as she's listening to a kid go on and on about a video game. I got like the just a sort of a, oh, that's really good, excuse me a minute, and she just kind of walked back to her desk just to be like, escape. And that notebook's probably long gone. No, it's just I just have that kind of mind where I can never really just... I was never the person to be on the playground and to just be Batman.
Yeah.
Or to just be Superman. Or I could never just watch a movie and then be like, oh, you just watched League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Which one do you think you are? And it's like, well, I'd want to be my own hero. I want to do my own thing. And so I naturally just got this drive to just start to create my own stuff. And I've been a nerd my whole life, and so I probably spend at least half of my time in my own head anyways.
Yeah.
So I've got all these like worlds, in the back of my mind, and all this like ridiculous headcanon for like the Marvel and DC universe that I would just probably just stupidly call the Johnverse version. But that's later on, after I got into gaming, that's just what inspired me to just start to make my own stuff. And I've been very fortunate, very, very fortunate, that a couple of companies have given me a chance, and I've had a lot of great opportunities to do it. So, and of course, I get to work with some of the best people. There's a couple of people in the gaming industry who, they're from the old guard, so they're set in their ways, and they're all like, no, Thaco was the best engine ever for D&D.
It helped my math skills.
Yeah, I actually use that to teach a kid math, but we used a weird version of the Order of the Stick board game. And so like he hated math so much until I got to be like, all right, the Goblin's AC is 17 and you currently have a +9. What do you need to roll at minimum on the D12 to hit the Goblin? 6. That's right. And he went from being the slowest kid at doing math to all of a sudden just cranking it out in his head. And he started to learn percentages and everything until he's like, no, we can't take him on. Why? We've only got like a 30% chance of beating him. It's not worth it. We're just going to lose. And it's like, you've changed quickly. But, my first, actual like gig when it came to writing was for, writing, an adventure for a Wild West RPG. And, it was called the Boxcars Adventures. And, mine was like, the coffin box murders. And I was still very grateful for the chance of getting to write it, even though I did reread it recently, and it needs some work. I mean, it's one of those, you could tell it's my early period. If I can use pretentious things, of course, people on Amazon will be looking at reviews going, everything's his early period. No, I followed games like on LiveJournal, and then on when like FARC would start up, there'd be gaming threads. And then as the internet came about currently, like when Facebook appeared and Reddit, and then I started to move from the older boards like RPGNet to Facebook communities. And again, I just like creating stuff. So there was this old forum called Shadow in Essence, which was a World of Darkness forum. And I would design like my own clans and my own disciplines and everything for the World of Darkness. And the thing that actually I learned the most from that forum was how brutal total strangers can be on the internet. And don't get me wrong, if you write something that's awful, and there are two things that I've worked on in my life that I'll gladly admit are probably not my best work, or best work by anybody. There's handling that criticism.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes it was trolls. It'd be people who'd be like, oh, you wrote this? This is awful. This is like, Dante from Devil May Cry. Oh, this is not original. Just give up writing. And hopefully you just quit the forums and never come back. And admittedly, that urge was strong. But then there would be other people who would go, oh man, this is a neat core concept, but there's several things wrong with this. But then they would try to walk you through it. And like they would try to be like, you need to understand like power structure here and where this power is going to play in the game, and try not to duplicate another power just because you want it faster. And then you just start to pick up that stuff. Because there were some people who genuinely, they also want to help, or they're aspiring writers.
Yeah.
So they really just wanted to not just get their 2 cents in, but they also were just sort of like, that's cool. Did you consider this method? And then just getting that exchange. And then
actual constructive criticism.
Yeah. And it was just so helpful to get the constructive criticism and then just the brutal, I'll be blunt, like hate posts.
Yeah.
Because one taught me how to be better, and the other one gave me the spite I needed to be like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Overlord 53. No, you and your stupid cat picture. I am better than you. And then in 2008, I met Aloy for the first time. And I answered an open call that he had on RPG.net. And it was for one of the supplement books for API. And I had bought actually a copy of API at one of the previous Gen Cons. And it was for writing for the Locks, who are these fish guys who are obsessed with Earth culture. And like they came from a world that was conquered by these gigantic kraken who are like psychic squids. And this is before Mass Effect came out. So, this is way before them. But, we had talked online, and he liked my ideas, and he let me write 2 of the chapters for the book. And after we were done, we just kept talking. And then he would, when he started putting together his own booths, I would help him run them for him. Run with him, not for him.
Yeah.
But, and then from there, we started working on more and more projects and more projects. And then now, Third Eye Games is just, it's always his company, and he is always the president. But I'm just so honored I get to work with him, and we go to conventions, and we he introduced me to the part of the business that's also essential, which is the time management and the financial aspects, where it's not just being creative and writing and doing all this. It's also respecting deadlines, knowing how to pay for stuff like art.
Yeah.
And how to eventually just put it all together into a finished project. And then from there, I just started working for so many other companies. I've worked for Modiphius, which is the most recent one. I'm one of the writers on the Infinity role-playing game. Infinity, which is a miniature game by Corvus Bell. It's been so great to take a miniature game that I've played for years and then be like, can I play in your sandbox? And Chris Birch was like, sure. And I think he was just like really grateful at the beginning just to start working with someone who knew so much about the game and didn't have to read off of like, the background information that we had been given, so that he could have like, a writer's meeting on Skype and be like, all right, who's doing Pan-Oceania? I said that like a hick. And then have like one of the other writers go, yeah, where's America in that one? I didn't notice America and Pan-Oceania at all. And then just like the Corvus Bell liaison just kind of like, like being like, oh, they're not the Americans. The Ariadnans are the Americans. And yeah, and just getting like, again, just it's been interesting getting to go from playing with little miniatures to taking those miniatures and putting them in essentially a giant world of make-believe, beyond just like, a war game.
Awesome. Now, I know you said a few things you've worked on. You've said some of your first items. What are some of the more popular things, or some of the things you're most proud of that you've worked on since, what you said, 2008 is when you got started? So
actually 2006 I think is when I got started. But
so definitely solid in that 10-year range, in the last 10 years.
Oh man, I'm a writer, and one thing you're going to find out about writers is that if you ask us what we're most proud of, we're going to say, well, I managed to remember to wear matching socks this morning. And then you're going to say, no, about what you're writing. And then I'm going to be like, well, I'm proud that, I got more than a couple stars on Amazon. Because no writer likes their work. There's this thing called, I'm probably going to get this wrong. I think it's Magpie Syndrome. I think that's what it's called. Oh, that's probably not right. But if you search the internet, you'll probably find out what it is. Oh, Impostor Syndrome is its other name. Where there was a long period where I wouldn't read my own stuff. I would not, it would be like, hey, your book came out, and it'd be like, oh yeah, that's great. Like, oh, did you read it? No. And, I'd try to pass it off as, well, I wrote it, so why would I read it? But then in actuality, it was really just more of a, no, because I don't want to see how bad I suck. And that's a real thing, and that's devastating. Because
it's real for blogging and podcasting too.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But sorry, didn't mean to.
Oh no, it's just
off there. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. But
yeah, it's just so weird to just look at your own work, and working with Eloy. Sometimes we'd work on projects that would go on like I worked on the first Ninja Crusade with him, and I got to work on the supplements for Ninja Crusade. And then as the years went by, we did a second book for Ninja Crusade. And then we did new versions of those supplements, and then we did like new books that span off of that. So then you'd be like, hey, take this ninja group you described in like the third chapter of this book and maybe expand on it, and then see how we did in the chapter with the Imperial Court and see what changes you'd make. And then I would be like, oh man, this section's awesome. Who wrote this? And then be another part of the same section where I go, oh, this is awful. Who did Eloy get to write this? And then I would be like, oh, I wrote this section. And then you just still try to be calm and be like, no, I'm really great. I'm really not great. I'm really awesome. I'm not awesome. But Impostor Syndrome it's mean. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people to describe it, because it's hard to describe to someone that it's like, oh, like, why do you feel down? You were published. Yeah, and it's stupid. It's got great reviews. People love it. Yeah, well, they're lying because they're trying to protect my sensitive feelings. But no, I mean, people are like actually playing it online, and remind me to come back to Kenzer because that's related to it. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, they're playing it because they have nothing else to do, and they took pity on the poor writer that is me. And I'm not saying that I'm the greatest writer, because of my friends and colleagues, I know so many people who, if you were sort of like, oh, well, who would you get to design the system? Well, you could ask Eloy or Alan. I think Alan's free. Shoshana's also free, so you could ask her, and then it would be like, oh, are they asking me? Were they wanting me to work on this? I have no idea. But the only other thing that was just so difficult when becoming a writer, for the first time, was learning to be innovative. Because a friend of mine's son wants to be a game designer like his mom. And his mom, Michelle, she is very talented. And she's gotten work with a lot of companies. And so it's no surprise, at least to me, when I learned about it, that he wants to design games too. Yeah. And I talked to him at a Gen Con, and he showed me all the stuff that he'd been working on. And the joke I made earlier about Devil May Cry, he made like a shot-for-shot remake in tabletop role-playing game form of that game. And that's the thing where you're going to laugh and you're going to go, oh, what are you going to do next? Do we make Buffy the role-playing game? But for some of us, we make things that we want to see because we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, if I get out of watching Star Trek, I really want to work on a Star Trek game. Or if I watch a fantasy movie, I want to work on like a D&D supplement. So getting excited about something, like, that's the big impetus that gets it started. Because, almost everything that gets created starts with a conversation that runs along the lines of, hey, wouldn't it be neat if? And then it goes from there. But being innovative, especially in an industry where I'm going to say probably about 40 books come out a year. And that's small compared to like mass market books where they release like hundreds of books a year. Or the romance industry, which releases, I think, 500 titles a year.
Sure that's not a month?
Hey, you know what? It sells. And,
hey, they're making money.
But no, it's just really sort of learning how to be, and not creative, just learning how to stand out. And of course, you don't want to just be like, hey, do you like D&D? I'm D&D, but my book is red instead of blue. See? Oh, it's different. Or you don't really want to be like, hey, did you like Lord of the Rings? Well, this is Lord of the Rings, but there's dragon men in it now. And like that, those brief comical statements can be used to describe so many things. Like that last one could describe Dragonlance.
Yeah.
And the one before it could describe like Swords and Sorcery or Tunnels and Trolls. One of the hard parts about creating stuff is just making something that's cool, that's fun, but also hasn't been done to death. For years, like I've gotten to work with Onyx Path and work on both the old and new World of Darkness. But now, like, I'm trying to work on my own horror game. And as I'm sitting there trying to put words to paper, one of the problems I keep coming down with is, okay, so they're werewolves. Like these werewolves, they're created by like this all-powerful mystical figure. And they're broken down into different tribes. And the tribes are determined by this. And you've got this tribe, and they're kind of like Icelandic ones. And these are Native American werewolves. And then I'll get on like this good streak. And then I'll stop and go, and this is Werewolf the Apocalypse. Completely. This was not original at all. This was time wasted. And so it's kind of hard just to not to be the new Coke of like soda drinks. So that's a reference that I don't know how many of the listeners are going to get.
I do have some older listeners. I remember New Coke.
I ran into someone the other day, and it's sort of like, oh, they're like, yeah, I was born in like 98. And I'm like, I started high school in 98. How old are you? And they're like, oh, I'm just like in my 20s. I hate you.
I have a coworker that I hired. He was one of my first hires, and I could be his dad.
It's one of the things to find out just how young someone is if you mention, no, I love the Terminator series, and they go, oh, the last movies have been awful, and I'm like, oh, well, did you watch the originals, the old ones? Nah, the special effects aren't any good. And then you have to fight back that bile rising in you, or it's just sort of like, they were classics.
Those were beautiful. I have touched one of the puppets from Terminator 2. I have held the tear gas gun in my hands. Those were beautiful pieces by Stan Winston.
Nice.
Finding my center.
Where it's sort of like, yeah, of course it's stop motion animation in the first one because, computer graphics weren't great then. But the second one is arguably the best Terminator ever.
And it had a beautiful mix of the stop motion and the digital.
Yeah. But, we're going to get back to Kenzer.
Yes.
So I've been a fan of Knights of the Dinner Table since I was, I'm going to say 11 or 12.
If you're a Hoosier gamer, it's kind of...
I know people where they know what it is, even if they have like negative opinions of it. Like there are two guys in my game group who make fun of me for it. Because in my backpack, I almost always pull out one of the most recent issues, but it's all beaten up. And so they make fun of it and say, oh, did you like wrap your lunch in that? I mean, what's going on? And it's like, no, it's in my backpack all the time, so it gets beat up. And I read it whenever I'm at lunch. And I've read it since issue 7. And I can describe for you the stories in issue 7. Like, that's where we get like the red, green towel story. And the cover's all red, and it's got Dave and Bob, and they're joking with each other. And I've read every issue since then, and I've read the earlier ones in collection, but it's weird to I used to think I wouldn't be one of those comic book collectors where I wouldn't say, no, I've been reading, Batman ever since, 98, and I have every issue and all the paraphernalia. But for me, it's, no, I've read every issue since issue 7. I've actually gotten to meet Jolly. In fact, one of the first Gen Cons, and Jolly, if you're hearing this, you're going to laugh. And people are wondering why Jolly's laughing out loud like a madman, because you're about to hear an embarrassing story about me. I was young. I was, 2003 was first Gen Con in Indy. I was 19. Mm-hmm. He had his booth, and I was meeting him for the first time. And, you always have like those, what you're going to say when you meet like a guy who's like inspired you. Like, if you ever met Stan Lee, you've probably got this, like, image in your head of, like, hello, Stan Lee, I am a big fan of your work. I've loved all of your heroes, of which I know them, but we're going to be cool and rational about this, and we're going to talk like two gentlemen would. I became Kenzer Co's, I don't know how to describe it. I lurked at their booth for like the first 2 days of Gen Con. And I don't think I even said anything really. And every time I tried to talk to him, I just kept saying, nights at the dinner table's great. You're great. And he'd be like, oh, thank you. And then like the 17th time, he'd be like, nights at the dinner table's really great. You're great. And he'd be like, okay, you bought your comics. Can you go, kid? What's going on? Do you have a parent with you?
Are you going to wear me as a suit by the end of the con? What's going on here?
And because I wasn't awkward, but I've got awkward tendencies. Especially then,
as we all do.
Yeah, and eventually, as I got older and I actually started getting into game design, I then approached him again. And a part of it was he didn't really recognize me, but part of it was also I think he was just sort of being like, oh, John's in our booth. Let's get this out of the way. Oh, hello. How are you? But no, we started talking and exchanging emails. And then he would have open call for material for a Nights at Dinner Table. And I sent him a pitch, and it was a crazy one. It was for their Halloween issue. And it was they had just started doing one of their dog storylines in the comic. Dog, the RPG, is a game that B.A. Felton makes, and it crashes and burns, and it nearly bankrupts him, and he forgets it forever until they make a second edition, and then it becomes the most popular game ever. So I pitched this adventure called the Tomb of Cat Aten, which is all about these dogs who are all the pets of like I'm going to blank on his name, the guy who discovered Tut's tomb.
Okay.
They're all the pets of the guys who are going through Tut's tomb, and they end up having to go into this smaller tomb that's been discovered and save their masters from this evil mummified cat who possesses magical powers. And I just pitched it to him, and he loved it and said, send it to me, and I sent it to him. And I didn't realize it, but he loved it so much, he actually made it into a drive-through RPG adventure that you can buy for $1. And then we started talking about Dog, and he wanted to hear pitches for supplementary material because in their I think it was their 150th anniversary issue, he included the rules for Dog, the role-playing game. And so I just looked at those rules, and I'm like, okay, well, what if you had like a player's guide and a Dog Master's guide? And so I got to write the player's guide and the Dog Master's guide because you know how in Nights at Dinner Table they do this like fine line between this is stuff as if Gary Jackson actually made it, but it's made to fit in our tiny comic book. And
I remember I had the original Hackmaster Player's Handbook, and
same here. Yeah. I also have the Aces and Eights one. And no, it's just that's how I've gotten to work with Jolly, and he's a really great guy. If you ever get to meet him, he's got the craziest stories just about the history of gaming, and he's interacted with almost all the giants in the gaming industry. So getting to talk to him, and he won't start off with it. He's not the type of person to just go, well, I remember when I met Steve Jackson. In fact, it was 1978 and we were outside this bar. And he's probably, if he does listen to this, he's going, that's not how I sound. But
if he does listen to this, dude, thank you. But
no, it's just, if you ever get him to just share stories, and a lot of them they sound crazy, but they're just so cool. And so, when you get to hang out with Ken St. Andre, who invented Tunnels and Trolls and other stuff, and And it's really nice to have people who are members of that generation of gaming who are willing to not lord it over everyone, who aren't going to be like, yes, I've played since White Box D&D, but who are more like, no, yeah, I remember it. No, it was a pretty cool game. I mean, we got to play elves. Elves were a class. It was a pretty interesting game. This one time, we were at the, the Keep up in Wisconsin, and, I talked to Gary, and Gary said, and just, you get to hear these stories, and I can only describe it as what it must have been like in the early college campuses in the 50s, and like Stan Lee showed up when Stan Lee was actively writing, and just being able to talk to Stan Lee and just to be like, no, I was talking to like all these other guys. I was talking to Jack Kirby the other day, and just hearing about their experiences, and even like the weird, like almost banal, boring sounding stuff is still really cool. And also the fact that so much of the old guard is getting older, and we're losing a lot of people. That it is kind of nice to hear stories like actually spoken to you, and not just you read them in a blurb on someone's blog. Not that there's anything wrong with blogs, just it's pretty nice. The chimes of.
No, I'm weird because that normally doesn't work, but moving on. I do not wind that chime on purpose because of podcasting, but
we turned that into a ghost detector, so good news, you have ghosts.
It's only the house is close to 100 years old. That doesn't surprise me.
Actually, speaking of like game designers who we've lost recently, Stuart Wyack, who passed away very unexpectedly in June. He was the guy who worked on like some of the original World of Darkness games, and who's worked on Pendragon and several other things. So a lot of gamers, even if you don't recognize the name, you may actually be enjoying a game right now that he worked on or he had an influence on. And I got introduced to him through my friend Alan Barr, who just out of sheer coincidence was like, hey, pitch your idea that you pitched me for, Gallant Knight Games. Pitch it to him. And I did, not expecting anything of it, because I really just thought, okay, it's an email, this guy, I'm going to pitch it to him. He's probably going to go, oh, that's cool. You keep working on it, slugger. And instead, what happened was he just messaged me back, and he asked me questions. And then, he would talk to Alan and I. And then he said, hey, so we're looking for a new launch title for Nocturnal Media for Gen Con. And we're going to have a bunch of other big announcements. But we'd like to take your idea, and since we love it so much, we're going to turn it into a big, it's going to be a big book, and we're going to color cover and all that. And I'm not mentioning what the subject matter is, because might try to make the game someday. But as we were just talking to him about all this stuff, and he was so receptive and kind. And when I learned that he had passed away unexpectedly, it was a huge shock. And it wasn't just because, the plans fell apart because, we started the project with him. It would just be really not rude, but just weird.
It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And so it's sort of no, we're not going to do it. And of course I was sad because I was really hoping to show it off at Gen Con, but it was also just more sad because it's like, this guy was so cool. He fenced, and that's actually how he died. He was doing a practice fencing session, and apparently after he was done fencing, he went to go put his gear away, and he stopped and collapsed, and his heart had given out.
Oh.
And but apparently he knew like all these sword styles, and he was apparently a very accomplished fencer. And he had all these cool stories about like working on Mage back at the old, I think it's called the Stone Mountain offices, and all of these like just funny stories of people that I know and respect in their younger days. And so I wish I could have gotten to know him more. And it's a tragedy. Not me not getting to make the game with him, just the fact that I don't get to work with him.
Yeah,
because such a great guy. But not to always talk about sad stuff on this one, but this Gen Con, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff at the con. Star Trek Adventures.
Yes.
I think you like Star Trek. I'm not sure.
I've dabbled in it here and there. Been a bit of a fan. Dr. Spock and all them. Yeah, it's with the elf ears.
Yeah. And Kirkland. Apparently they sponsor the show. Captain Kirkland. Gives out discount survival food and all that. And
it's to give you guys a insight on the little inside joke there. I was showing him the Nitpicker's Guide for Next Generation Trekkers Volume 2 before we recorded, where my name is listed as a contributor. So,
which I think is really cool. We used to have so many of those books when I worked at Vaughn's used books up in Lafayette. That sometimes we would try to put them in like our little bundles and be like, hey, if you buy 3 Star Trek novels, get one free. Also a copy of the Nitpicker's Guide. Take it. And you'd almost have to be like, hey, and you also get this book. And you try to put it in their bag and they'll be like, no, I don't want that book, but you get it for free. You're taking it.
Use it to balance out a table leg or something. We don't care. Just please get it out of here. It's a fire hazard.
Actually, a friend of mine he'd buy the cheapest books because he'd use them to start fires, like campfires. He would try to find like if they had 10-cent or quarter sales, and he would buy like all like Danielle Steele novels. And he would buy old beat up ones. He wouldn't buy like nice ones because but he would still be like, oh, I will take 20 Danielle Steele romances. What is that? 10 cents a piece? Thank you. And then he'd roll them up and use them to start campfires.
It works.
Yeah. There's also a lot of other cool stuff at Gen Con this year. I almost forgot to mention that Third Eye Games, we won an Ennie.
Nice.
Yeah. For those that don't know, the Ennies are Ian World's awards for tabletop game designers. It's our Academy Awards. Although without anybody you would probably recognize if they called off names. But it's a big industry event, and Gen Con, Gen Con's all about the fun, but off up to the fringes, you've still got like industry awards and competitions and dinners, and we've been nominated for like consistently for the past I think 5 years, but we always get nominated up against just juggernauts. Where we got nominated for Best Family Game for Mermaid Adventures. And you keep thinking, yeah, we're going to win. We're going to win this year. Yeah, we're going to win. Who are we up against? The Doctor Who role-playing game. We're Whovians. What are we going to do, Aloy? If our game wasn't even in here, we'd vote for that. What do we do? And while they don't ever tell you the vote things, because, they can't, I can only imagine that if they ever did, they would sort of be like, no, you got a respectable 5% of the vote. That's really good. Doctor Who got 95% with a margin of error of 5%. But you did pretty good.
But probably a lot like when I went up against Pat McAfee for Best Twitter Feed.
Oh, yeah. He's a funny guy. I got to see one of his underground shows when he was doing his stand-up. He is funny. But no, normally with the Ennies, you're nominated, and you find out at the awards if you've won. But we won a judge's spotlight, which each year they have 6 new judges who pick a game that they feel is either very inspiring or innovative or interesting that is not well known. Mm-hmm. So that that way games that are not just overshadowed by like Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition or the latest White Wolf game. That way games that, would probably never... they'll be in your game store, but you're going to walk in there first going, where's Pathfinder? And or Starfinder at this Gen Con. But Ninja Crusade, which I got to work on with Aloy and with a lot of other very talented people, got won, because these are the only awards at the Ennies that are like chosen beforehand. We won a judge's spotlight. And nice. It's nice because you never tell yourself that you need an award for validation. I mean, we kind of do. I'm going to admit, we do kind of lie. You don't say, oh, well, I don't need that award. I'm great all on my own. Hey, you won this award. I knew it. I'm the greatest person ever. You're all horrible. They said I'm great. Wait, no, that award was meant to go to Moonlight. Oh, Moonlight deserves it. That's an Academy Award joke for people who also watch shows. Shows? I don't even know what that statement means. But
wait, that's what the TV's supposed to be used for? It's not just for Netflix?
I have Netflix and YouTube. But no, so like again, you know, and we still don't need awards for validation. But
it helps with the imposter syndrome.
It does, and the new engine for that game was again Aloy's brainchild, and that's where his creativity really shines. I mentioned earlier about how you could just say something to him and be kind of like, oh, hey, I'm having trouble with this mechanic. How would it work? And he'll look at it and go, oh, use this much simpler but still really cool method. And he'll never be like, oh, that's dumb. You're dumb. Throw that away. And he'll always try to work with you. And even if you are barking up the wrong tree, he'll still just be like, that's pretty cool, but why don't we try it this way? And then he'll explain to you why we should try to do it this way. And I know he's excited. And I know that he's probably got the same feelings that I do, where, you know, we don't need an award to tell us we're great. But I really do think for my friend, because, you know, we all worked on it, you know, but it's his brainchild. And so we all technically get the award. We all get to put our fingers on it. But I'm just really proud for him because, you know, it's not that it's recognition that he is really good at his job, not that he's superior to anyone, and not that he needed recognition. But it's still, I think it's going to be really great to see my friend walk down the aisle and go up on stage. And if for any readers who are wondering what he looks like, he constantly wears clown makeup and really long red shoes. And he's over 5 feet tall with, like, you know, just polka dots everywhere. And that's Tony's just being like, what? He does? No, you're lying.
You're a phony.
You're just a great big phony. No, I'm hoping that Aloy will actually listen to this and go, I hate you. Why are you my friend?
I really think you're overestimating the people who will listen to this. Unless you are sending links to, like, Aloy and Jolly and all them saying, listen to this.
You never know, they might. I'm probably definitely going to send this to Aloy, in which case, you know, he's probably just going to be like, oh, you guys don't know what my life is. Never-ending harassment by John. I once like sent him text messages like every 2 minutes because I knew he was in Denver with at a con, and he was sort of like, yeah, we're just going at the sushi. I'm going at the sushi with Sean Patrick Fannin. It's going to be really cool. And I kept sending him sushi like, no, I'm going to live vicariously through your experience. Send pictures to me of where you are. And it's all in good fun. You know, that's what you do. But, no, other than a Gen Con, just...
Yeah, because you are going to be at Gen Con this year.
Oh, yeah.
So, where's your booth going to be?
It's going to be with the Independent Game Designer Network booth. I haven't received the booth number, but it's going to be a big booth. For people who don't know what the IGDN is or what it stands for, well, first let me say, we're going to be in the booth. We have like our own section, so you'll find us there. We'll have the big Third Eye Games display and all the banners. But the IGDN is an organization that helps independent game designers, not just with making their games, but in networking and helping to give them a collective voice. It's not really a union. It's not really meant to, like, you know, intimidate game companies or anything, but it's really meant more for, hey, were you mistreated by this company? That's not cool. Okay, talk to us. Maybe we've got some advice that can help you, or maybe we should let people know, hey, don't work with these people. And also, it's just meant more for, hey, you're learning how to use InDesign for putting together your PDFs, and you're having a problem getting these, like, you know, ratios to match up. Well, Adam over here knows how to work InDesign. He might be able to help. And then Adam will get his friends, and then everybody just boom. It's a really great groovy place. And the other cool thing about it, although I might argue it's the bad thing, is that you get all these cool new games that come out each year that everybody makes. And the reason I say it's a bad thing is because I don't make that much money. So you always try to be like, hey man, I can't afford your game. You know, I'm really sorry. Oh, that's cool. So what's the latest game that you've got right now? Oh, it's called Hellas. It's about sci-fi role-playing in like the future. Mankind is out in the galaxy and it's all Greek themed, and so there's aliens that look a lot like the races from Greek mythology, and you can play a Spartan who has a laser spear and his shield generates a force field, and his helmet is queued up to a HUD system that's also his life support. And by the time he's done explaining it, I'm already like looking through my app on my phone just being like, if I don't eat for 3 days and if I don't have to pay my cell phone bill on time because they give me 48 hours and then I could just pay on the next paycheck, I bought your game. I'll take that. I'll take the deluxe stuff too. And
you need the miniatures and
yeah, I fall for that every time.
The full poster size print and
yeah,
yeah,
like Pugmire, Eddie Webb, who designed Pugmire. I backed it, and I'm sort of like, no, I don't need the cards. I mean, I could just print them off online. But then as I'm going through add-ons, it's like, well, if I'm buying the dice and I've bought a hardcover of the book, surely I need the cards because they'd be neat to have around.
You know, it's like, you know, I'm looking forward to picking up the Star Trek role-playing game.
Mm-hmm.
This year, and well, if I'm getting the game, I've got to at least get one set of the dice. I've got to get the red because I'm into the whole red shirt security engineering thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get the dice. Sure, I have a ton of 6-sided dice already. I'll still get dice.
I work on Infinity, and yet when they offered, as part of their Kickstarter deal, the chance to buy dice for each of the factions, I immediately leapt forward and said, okay, I play Ariadna, I play Nomads, I play Hawk. I don't really play Pano, but I like the color of those dice. Boom.
But they sure are pretty.
Yeah, and it's just sort of, now I have like 40 D20s. Because, you know, the role-playing game and the miniature game use D20s. And now you only ever really need, like, 2. And so now I'm just like this big bowl of D20s. And it's sort of like, anybody else need dice? Well, get your own. Because these are mine.
See, right now, all I've got, if you look over there, I've got a jar full of D4s. That was a disciplinary method for work, actually. You mess up, I dump the dice out, you take off your shoes, and you have to walk the D4s.
Ow, no. Ow.
Yeah, HR didn't approve of that, but
I can only imagine that that's the safer version to your more sadistic one, which was Legos.
The Legos went with the Geekling out to California, so I didn't have any Legos. That was the best. That was actually cheaper going through Heroes Emporium and the Game Preserve, going through their big tubs of random dice,
the cheap
and pulling
ones.
out all the D4s and going, here. They're like, why? And I tell them, and they're like, oh, okay, have a discount.
I've actually stepped on a D4. So
yes,
like it was the middle of the night. I didn't realize that my cat had knocked over my dice bag, and so I didn't see it on the floor. And so I'm going to the bathroom of all places and just walking, step. God, yeah. And
you're good. Don't worry.
Okay. Just like the scream just echoed throughout the whole place and woke everyone up. And they're like, "What happened? Are we being robbed? What happened? Did you step on a piece of glass?" I stepped on a piece of plastic and it hurt. And being judged, you know, just by a bunch, you know, like by family, but they're still doing the. You're not on fire. Do you want to be on fire? This is how you get set on fire, John. No court would convict.
You know what? Or those old G.I. Joe making mock of their PSAs, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Those people, they go to bed at night, everything's good, everything's fine. They wake up in the morning, they're on fire.
I didn't get to watch G.I. Joe when I was a kid.
Oh. You poor, poor man.
My family didn't believe in letting me watch G.I. Joe because, from what I understand, there had been like a shooting near our church, and so for a while they were very anti-gun.
Okay.
And so, like, I remember my mom took all my plastic toy guns away and just threw them away. And I wasn't allowed to watch G.I. Joe because, you know, it's guys running around with guns. But they didn't stop me from watching Transformers, which was robots who turned into guns to shoot robots.
And they were all lasers anyway.
Yeah. And you know, I couldn't explain that as a 5-year-old, but
yeah.
But no, just so when I grew up, and then like I remember I was in college actually, and a friend of mine wanted to show me the G.I. Joe movie for the first time, and I mean the animated one, not the live action one that came later. And we're sitting there, and like a bunch of other geeks, and they're all getting really nostalgic, and they're all like Cobra la 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 la, and I'm sitting there going, "This is awful. This is like the worst thing ever." And as we're getting through it, they're like, "Hey, John, you're not making any jokes." And I'm like, because the only jokes I have are really making fun of this. And they're like, "Oh, well, what don't you like about it?" Everything.
The fact that it's a 78 or whatever minute long toy commercial.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, so snake men at the center of the earth who live in a mystical land kidnap Cobra Commander and turn him into a snake. Isn't he already a snake? And then jets that are made of bubbles fly around shooting lasers at each other. But it's okay to shoot Cobra because they're robots, except for the people who aren't robots who never get hit. And then as I'm going through it, and they're all like, you don't like G.I. Joe? It's quintessentially American. And I remember there was a guy there who's actually from, like, you know, the UAE, and he even looked at me like, no, I'm surprised. I thought that you would really be about this. And it's like, no, this is awful. Not that, in retrospect, after having recently rewatched a bunch of episodes of G1 Transformers, not that I have a leg to stand on, because, you know, it's sort of like, no, this is really great. Watch this episode where they're in the Socialist Democratic Republic of Carbamia. There was an episode of Transformers that was so racist, it made Casey Kasem quit the show. Because he is of Lebanese descent. And he was a professional, and he filmed his lines for that episode. Then he immediately turned in his resignation afterwards. Like, immediately, and said, I can't work for a racist company anymore. Because the episode featured Arabs with huge noses, and there's an infamous graphic for that episode that said, the Democratic Socialist Republic of Carbamia, Carbomya.
Oh, jeez.
Population, 500,000, 1 million camels.
I don't remember that.
It doesn't get aired a lot these days because it's really bad. But Trypticon and like another one of them, I think Octane, they go and they hide out in this pastiche of, you know, anti-Arab propaganda, and the Transformers have to go there and defeat the tyrant of Carbamia. And this is all during the time when, like, you know, Libya is really big in the news with Gaddafi. Yeah. Not that justifies racism in any way, but no, just that episode was so bad that Casey Kasem, who did Teletran 1 and I think I want to say Smokescreen, was literally just like, here are my lines, I am done, and I am done with you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That took a turn. That line of conversation
that got real.
Took a turn.
It got real, man.
Yeah.
But it got real about Transformers.
Today I learned.
The more I know. Hey, these are the thoughts that go through my head. All right, for any of the listeners who are listening right now, who here can say with a straight face that they have never gone down a wiki hole? That's when you get on Wikipedia and you're looking up something because you'll be like, hey, when did Babe Ruth die? And then you're going to start reading his biography. And then you're going to start reading about baseball during that time period. And then for some reason, there's going to be a weird tangent where it's going to be like, and then there was his time in World War II where he met this famous World War II hero. And then you start just clicking on each different wiki page. And you do the right click thing where you start doing, okay, when I'm done learning about Albania's economic depression of the 70s, I'm going to read this thing on thermonuclear dynamics. And then when I'm done with that, I'm going to read about Iron Man. And then when I'm done with that, and then before you know it,
right click, open a new tab, right click, open a new tab, right click. Yep.
And then before you know it, like if you're on like a computer, more than half your tabs are just going to be just weird stuff. And you don't want to close them because it's going to be like, no, I have to know the difference between a Black Panther and these other species called Panther. And then you're just going, oh, these are the differences. And like, oh, this is how their claws are formed. And then here are teams named after Panthers. And then here's Black Panther, the superhero. And then before you know it, boom, it's 3 a.m. You've not slept. And when you go to work in the morning, they're going to be like, hey, you look tired. You know, why are you so tired? Oh, nothing. Did you know they tried to find a workaround so that they could use Killmonger in the Black Panther movie? And I wonder how they're going to use Ulysses Claw. You know, he's based off of an actual sound engineer. And your coworkers are probably just going to look at you like, whatever you need to take in the morning. Either you skipped a dose or you took too much.
No, I work in a call center with a bunch of geeks. That probably would just start the conversation. So...
Well, then sometimes it's cool. Sometimes it's like, hey, I looked up, I read all the IMDb trivia for each episode of Deep Space Nine, which I've done.
Oh, but that's a common thing. Get out of the movie, first thing I do, pull up the trivia page.
Yeah.
I don't want to read it before because spoilers.
Well, yeah.
But
I actually like to wait like a couple months after the movies come out because then all the collected trivia will be in one place. Because, you know, sometimes you'll read the trivia page and then it'll be like 20 items, half of it you already knew. But then, like, the moment you click off the page, someone goes, hey, here's 10 cool things about the movie that they didn't include before. And then you never read it again.
No, because then I'll read it again when I get it on Blu-ray.
I did that with Iron Man recently, actually. Watched it on Amazon Prime because I was trying to fall asleep.
Too, huh?
Didn't work. Stayed up. Watched it, and then I got on the trivia, and then it's just sort of this is so cool. Arguably, to me, the best of the Marvel movies. I mean, all of them are good.
Yes.
Even Ant-Man, who some people don't like, but I love.
I love the heck out of Ant-Man.
It was a heist movie. It wasn't really a proper superhero movie until the end, but it was just a really cool heist movie.
Yeah.
But Iron Man, for me, because it set the tone for Marvel movies.
Yeah.
It was the first of the new wave, and it really was the one that told Marvel that, hey, you guys could be a big deal. And it was just so amazing because, we had Iron Man, and then we had Iron Man 2, which was great to the last 10 minutes. And then, that's when we started to get Captain America and Thor, and then we got Avengers. And
hey,
then...
we had Hulk in there too.
Oh, he did, yeah.
The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton.
Actually, that was bad. I liked it.
Yeah.
The guy from Lie to Me was in it. He played Emil Bronsky, the Abomination.
Yeah. You see, and the really cool thing, especially if you'd ever read the Ultimates, was when the post-credit scene, when Nick Fury came out and it was Samuel L. Jackson.
I cannot imagine that movie. I cannot imagine Nick Fury as David Hasselhoff. Yeah. And I oddly like the really bad 80s S.H.I.E.L.D. movie. Probably because I was a kid when I saw it. Same thing with the Captain America movies that were made in Italy. And
I've never seen the Captain Americas. I remember when S.H.I.E.L.D., it was a Fox movie, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Oh, man, you missed out. You missed out on Hang Glider Cap.
I remember they had one of the suits and the motorcycle at the Planet Hollywood in Indianapolis. I remember they had those.
He had a hang glider motorcycle that he used to catch up with Red Skull, and the 80s was a weird time, okay? We didn't have good special effects, so it couldn't be like, oh, Captain America on his helicarrier. Instead it was, oh, Captain America. Well, if we do a lot of close-ups and make it look like it's flying, it's really bad. Yeah. The ears are fake on his costume. They didn't show his real ears. That actor did not have photogenic Captain America ears.
Interesting.
That's what I think.
You're really selling this for me. You're really making me want to go out and find these movies.
Hey, I've seen the old Incredible Hulk episodes that had Thor and Daredevil in it.
I remember taping those off TV.
Thor was like a weird professional wrestler with super strength, and Daredevil was really just, as I recall, just some schlub who shows up, and he has to explain his powers because they couldn't show his powers. He has to explain his powers.
He was Banner's lawyer.
Yeah. That's how they did a lot of that with Daredevil. Like in the Spider-Man animated series where it's just sort of like, quick, how do we do a crossover? Hey, look, Peter Parker, here's your lawyer, Matt Murdock.
Well, that's what you've seen the Defenders previews.
Yeah. I'm excited.
But that's how he gets introduced. He's her lawyer.
It's gotta be an awkward conversation, I can imagine her doing something dramatic with super strength, like ripping the end off the table, and he's just sitting there going, "What? What just happened?" Did you like Iron Fist at all?
We are about 5 episodes through it, and it's not horrible. It's not Daredevil season 2. It's not Luke Cage, and it's not Jessica Jones. It's not horrible.
I couldn't.
It's very. I heard it best described earlier as it's bland.
It's very bland.
It's Danny Bland, not Danny Rand.
That's a good one.
That was actually me though. I hadn't heard Danny Bland.
I read the Matt Fraction run on Iron Fist, and before that, my only exposure to Iron Fist was when he showed up in Maximum Carnage, which was a Spider-Man arc in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I thought he was goofy because it was just sort of you're wearing pajamas and you punch people with your fist of iron and they fly away and that's it. But Matt Fraction reinvented the character, and he made it so much cooler, where he turned him from like the blandest 70s pastiche of martial arts, and then he spun it through a not quite exploitation filter, because he was being very sensitive to like, cultures and ethnicities. But all of a sudden, Iron Fist went from, I have Kung Fu power, I have the power of Kung Fu, to, hey, what if I fought people who had equal levels of Kung Fu and also superpowers based off Kung Fu? And so, like, the first, like, if you're by the trades, the first trade is he meets, like, the previous Iron Fist, who's this aging steampunk Iron Fist who channels his power through his guns, and does, like, gun Kung Fu. And then you see, like, the cool thing from the series was they would do, like, a move, and then at the bottom, they would say what the move is. So it'd be like, Bastard's Blackheart Crusher, or, Fist of the Phoenix, the 10 Lamentations of Mankind. And it would just be so cool. And it added this level of, man, these guys, not only are they doing different martial arts, but they're getting over the medium's inability for it to properly be like, oh, here's Iron Fist versus Davos. Watch them fight. And in the comics, it's, abstractly, it's fist up. Okay, I'm hitting you now. Okay, look, I'm jumping away. And the problem with that as it relates to the show, I know I went on a little tangent, is the show, it wasn't that the show is bland. It's just that the show had been done. We had gotten Kung Fu from Daredevil, from 2 seasons of Daredevil.
Yeah.
We'd gotten gritty street fighting from Luke Cage. And to an extent, we got superhero fighting from Jessica Jones. And so when we got to Iron Fist, you were just hoping that you were going to watch a series where you could see them go like, no, he is Kung Fu, but he's got magic powers on top of it. And from what we understand, he gets his powers from the heart of a dragon, and he can channel his chi and do like all sorts of cool stuff. And even if at the end of the day, if they had just made a series that was just Danny Rand punches 10 guys a minute, that'd have been cool. Because what happens in Daredevil all the time, you can tell the part of the Daredevil episode where it's like, okay, here's where Murdoch's just going to punch, he's going to ninja kick the rabbit.
Yeah.
And with Iron Fist, it wasn't even so much that there was a lack of cool Kung Fu. It's just in trying to temper the character and make him appear relatable, they made him get beaten up by scrubs. Where it was like, I remember one episode where he's having this roaming fight with 3 hand ninjas. And they're just beating him up. But not even in an impressive style. It wasn't like, oh, my superior Kung Fu, I get past your guard and kick you. Instead it was, hey, I punched you. Now I'm slapping you. Okay, now I'm throwing you against the wall. And Danny would just almost be like flailing. And it's like, no, you're supposed to be the master of Kung Fu. Show us your masterful Kung Fu.
I was really feeling that, like I said, we just got done, I think, episode 5, where he did that fight in the back of the semi-trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Where the one Russian guy got stabbed.
Yeah, that was cool.
And he's getting his butt handed to him in the back of that semi-trailer. And I'm like, this is not someone that's trained with warrior monks.
Yeah, you defeated a dragon. Did you sneak up on the dragon?
Was he sleeping? Did you get him really drunk?
I was kind of hoping, like, because Davos was, yeah. Oh, what is her name? The other Kung Fu expert he encounters, I forget her name.
The owner of the dojo.
Yeah, because she was actually more compelling and a much better fighter. And while, you shouldn't watch the series to be like, I just want to watch them hitting each other, she was just cooler.
It is honestly a series called Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Which is about people hitting each other.
Well, I was really hoping that, like, at some point he would catch up either to her skill level, or really the show would just sort of be like, and Danny's been arrested and he's stuck in prison forever, and now it's her show. And then it would be like, then I would just sort of be like, I am fine with this. This is okay. She knows what she's doing.
Even though I did kind of roll my eyes at the beginning of this episode where Claire was her student. It's like, really, that's how you're going to introduce Rosario Dawson,
the Night Nurse,
to this series?
I was hoping, I was just hoping that they would, like, at some point bring Nuke back in, because I like Nuke as a villain, not and then, or make more references to the Punisher, who the season 2 of Daredevil made me like the Punisher.
See, I've only seen about 3 episodes, and I was sold on the 3. We've been watching the other ones because Daredevil's a bit too brutal for Liz. She hasn't been enjoying them. So I've been trying to watch them when she's not around, like when she's studying.
No, that's totally relatable.
And so I haven't been able to get as caught up with it as the other ones that she wants to watch with me.
Actually, I got into an argument with a friend over the Punisher. Because traditionally, I don't like the Punisher. I find the Punisher is way too close to gun porn for my taste, where it's sort of a, hey, the Punisher walked in this room and he shot 10 people, just point blank. Wasn't that cool? No.
But it was one of Dolph Lundgren's best roles.
Oh. No, that was Masters of the Universe. That was his best role.
Yes.
Or Rocky 3. It's just, I know people like the Punisher, but I find that he gets overused in our culture. And I know there's a lot of people who are just sort of like, no, one day I wish I could be like the Punisher and just go nuts with my guns and kill all the bad guys. And I'm like, you don't know who the bad guys are. If you go nuts with your guns, you're probably going to kill innocent people. And so I was prepared for the Punisher to enter this series and just sort of be like killing everybody left and right. And he does to an extent, because you go through his story, you learn how he becomes a Punisher and the head injury and his loss of his family. And then, of course, he uses guns. But he has this conversation with Daredevil where he says something along the lines of, the difference between me and you is that I'm you on a bad day. And as I watched all the episodes in that season, I started realizing just how brutal and deadly the Daredevil is in the MCU, because he's dropping guys like down like fire escapes. He's hitting people in the head with bricks. He's throwing them off rooftops. One guy he dropped down the center of a stairwell and the guy's head whipped back and forth, cracking on things. He's hitting people with like heavy objects in the head, or he's very clearly breaking bones. And if you think about it, you don't know how many of those guys didn't just die afterwards. And it sort of made me really just kind of question it and go, well, if I had to choose between breaking every bone in that guy's body or just shooting him, it's probably more humane to shoot him. But it's just so hard to be like, no, the Punisher is a really bad guy. Go, Daredevil, go in, break the teeth out of that guy's face one at a time. What's wrong with you, man, Murdoch? That's not cool. I mean, that guy's a villain, yeah, but, you know, I mean... Or, you've broken every one of his ribs, and now you're picking him up and throwing him off a building. Well, he's dead. No, I'm a hero who doesn't kill. You just killed a man. He is dead. He probably went splat. Another hero's going to come by and think you're the villain. Like, if Spider-Man's going to come by and go, hey, I heard a guy's killing people over here. No, I'm fighting Hand Ninja. You've killed 7 dudes. No, you're going in.
One of them landed on an old lady. What are you doing?
Just so brutal. And I like brutal stuff. I mean, you know, I used to watch professional wrestling. I'm a fan of boxing. I'm not a big fan of horror movies, but I still like horror movies. So, you know, it's not that I'm like, you know, being like, oh, violence is bad. I don't want violence in my superhero movie. But there's just an extent where it just literally became, hi, I'm Daredevil. Time for you to go meet the devil. Mm-hmm. And where if Daredevil by the end of that season had just picked up a gun and started shooting people, I would have been like, oh, so Punisher was right. And in this case, Punisher was right. Yeah, can't really. Way to go. I like Frank Castle now. I'll go buy one of those skull bumper stickers and put it on the back of my truck.
Or on the hood of your squad car. Anyway.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
So, too real. But, all right, let's bring it on back because we're starting to get just past the hour mark. So, because as it's very easy to do when you have a couple of geeks talking, especially one who has a lot of good experiences to share. But we have gone from games to game stories to Gen Con to racist Transformers to Netflix. So let's bring it back around. I know you touched on a little bit the booth you're going to be at. You don't have the number. I will find the number. It'll be attached to the blog post attached to this episode. And I'm also going to do the week of Gen Con. Tuesday tidbits, instead of being general items for the state, is going to be very Gen Con specific.
Okay.
So I'm going to have booths where friends of mine and local Hoosier game makers and developers, where they're going to be. If anybody's doing panels, that's what Tuesday tidbits are going to be on. I think it's going to be the 15th.
Okay, sweet. I'm actually doing a panel at Gen Con. So
you need to... before that panel, before the 15th, you need to give me that information so I can get you included on there.
Yeah, sure. Just real quick, Friday, 2 p.m. If you have nothing better to do, between your busy schedules. You know, I'm trying to be nice here.
And Friday at 2 p.m., that's around when I'm talking to Chris Burge, actually.
No, you tell him that you don't want to learn about all the cool stuff he's coming down the pipe, including the Fallout miniature game.
I was going to say, you think I don't care about Fallout? I have a Pip-Boy and a Vault 101 suit upstairs in the closet. You can't tell me I'm not looking forward to Fallout.
When he announced that, I kept peppering him like, please, let me work on it. He goes, no, I need you on Infinity. And it's like, please, it's Fallout. And he's like, no, stick with what you're good at. Not that I wouldn't be great somewhere else, but literally would just be, no, just stay over there.
1 to 1:30 is when I'm talking to Chris. 2 to 2:30, I'm talking to the folks behind Diced.
Oh, nice.
That mobile app that's supposed to teach you rules to the games.
Oh, yeah. I've heard someone mentioning that. I don't know anything more about it.
I don't. That's why I'm interviewing them, is because I am intrigued and I wish to subscribe to the newsletter.
well, people who aren't interviewing cool and groundbreaking, game designers, and you want to learn how to be a better GM, I have a panel at 2 p.m.
Nice, and that's actually something I could use because I have GM'd once, and I've been told it was good. And I'm like you, that's because I'm the first game you've ever played in.
It was originally called Stop Moving the Goalpost, a guide to being a better GM. Mm-hmm. Now it's just, it's got a name like The Art of GMing. And it's pretty cool. I've got a couple of really good guests lined up, although I'm waiting to announce them once they have finalized, because it's okay. This goes to Gen Con, things change, but it's focusing on how to not just improve your techniques, but also looking at the idea that it's got to be players versus the GM, and how if that's the game you want, cool, and you can have a good game that's that style, but how it doesn't have to be players versus GM, and it also doesn't have to be GM casino for the players. Mm-hmm. But how it should really more be along the lines of, hey, if you're the GMing this game, you're building the world, you're putting them through the story. Sometimes here's how to help them with the story, so that players are not just sitting around going, no, what are we fighting today? 10 Elder Red Dragons. Well, we made you mad. Okay. you don't want us to win.
Okay, because you ate the last slice of pepperoni, guess what you get a fight?
You get to fight a Tarask. Way to go. But we don't even have a limited wish ring.
So, but you're going to be at the table. You're going to be at, you've got a panel. Mm-hmm. Any other cool stuff going to be happening?
I'm playing in the 7th Sea LARP at 2 p.m. on Saturday. I think it's a council in Eisen is its name. I know that my friend Danielle Lawson Harper, she's putting it on. And people who love 7th Sea and want to try out their new LARP mechanics, it's going to be a great game. I think there's still spots available. And Danielle is like a premier storyteller. And she knows LARP theory like the back of her hand. And she doesn't even have to reference her hand that often, where she can. No, she's really good at it, and I'm not trying to build up her ego, but at the same time, just I think people, from what I've heard about, people are going to be really excited to play the 7th Sea LARP.
All right, cool. Mm-hmm. And I know you've did some work, and I saw you over at Modiphius last year. Are you going to be over there at all this year, or is it just going to be?
Oh, I'm going to be over there helping out when I can. Because the booth's gonna be pretty popular. Star Trek Adventures, it's gonna be at the booth. So there'll be a lot of people hoping to get their hands on a copy. The book is beautiful, just well done to Sam Webb and his team. And they've also got a couple of announcements they're gonna be making throughout the con. So definitely check out the Modiphius Twitter feed and the Modiphius Facebook feed, because they're going to be announcing stuff slowly throughout the con. So there's going to be a bunch of surprises. Maybe can't really say much more than that.
Yeah. Understood.
But also just lets you know, like what's going on and what products they have. And then, I'll be at the IGDN booth too. So if you're looking for independent games, if you're looking for games that are just different from standard D&D, stop on by. I once joked that it was more like a library than it was like a booth selling games, because the way they set it up, it is like shelves of games. And you could ask any of the people who are working the booth at that time, and you could be like, I want to play a game that's Roman Centurions. Well, we have Centurions over here. What if I want to play a horror game, but using the Powered by the Apocalypse engine? Here's Urban Shadows. Enjoy. What if I want to be little dragons, learning what it's like to be a dragon? That's Apillion. Here you go. And just, you're going to find so much over there. And Other than that, as a fan, I'm looking forward. It's the anniversary con. It's supposed to be one big party.
As someone who is formerly worked at Disneyland and knows what huge crowds are like, I'm not sure how I'm feeling about actually going this year, but I'm gonna suck it up. And
I'm lucky because I have a booth I can hide in. So
Yes.
there are times when because I don't like being touched. So sometimes if I'm being bumped into a lot, I just get really annoyed. And so it's sort of like, stop bumping me, stop bumping into me, stop bumping into me. And most people can't help it because, even though you try to have that 360-degree vision, it's sort of like, oh, let's turn right. Oops, sorry, man, I bumped into you. And then you've got the people who...
no spatial awareness whatsoever.
And they bring with them like rolling luggage full of magic cards because they're trying to find a buyer. And they just let it dangle behind them. And they'll make sharp turns and you won't see them and you'll trip over them. Because I've tripped over one of them before. And it was a metal moving dolly. And so it scratched up my legs pretty bad. And the guy looked at me and he just screamed at me and said, "Do you know how much these cards are worth?" And I'm holding my knee and my knee's got a nasty little red bruise on it. And we exchanged pleasantries. And then he moved off. But it was just sort of why would you bring that here? But no, I'm looking forward to having a good time at this con. Because last year, I had a medical mishap after the con. And spent 7 days in intensive care. And I hope not to repeat it. Although, it's not going to be repeated. It was just a weird one-time thing.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yes, I know. Put spikes there. I don't care.
But
this is Keep John Healthy Con.
Yeah. Oh, my mom and even Aloy. Even Aloy's like, okay, you're going to drive up the stuff to the con, but I'll get someone to carry it in. I'll carry it in. No, you're not carrying it in. We don't need you dead. And it's like, it's not that heavy. It's like 20 pounds altogether. And, then he'll probably put in a joke of, you can't even lift 19 pounds. So we have good-natured ribbing.
Friends. Air quote, friends.
Friends. to paraphrase the Monarch from Venture Brothers, it kills me you're my best man. But no, just I'm excited. And it's anniversary con.
Yeah.
And it's going to be crazy and it's going to be wild. But part of me is kind of looking forward to that. I mean, part of me is kind of wanting to see Gen Con filled to the brim. It's probably going to be a nightmare. I mean, I'm probably at the end of the con going to be like at home, cuddling with my cat, crying and rocking back and forth and saying, we're home, we're home. But at the time, I'm hoping that I'm going to walk around and I'm going to see, 75,000?
75 is what they're hoping for.
75,000 people.
And today, on the day we were recording this, they shut off Thursday ticket sales. Friday's the only day left.
Wow. And then that's not even counting the Ghost Con attendees. I don't know if you've heard of it. Have you heard of Ghost Con?
Those are the folks that just hang out in the lobby?
Now they're apparently organizing. I think mostly because a lot of them are upset over the trolling on the Gen Con Facebook group. But now apparently, even if you don't have a badge, it's just going to be the Gen Con Ghost Con, which will be in the lobbies of the convention center.
They are pushing to just have them completely shut down the convention center and you have to show the badge when you walk in.
I'm against that because it's a public place and I respect taxpayers paid for it. The thing, and don't get me wrong, like I've never done that at a con. I've never done it.
Yeah.
But I do know people who like they show up. Like my sister and my brother-in-law used to take my niece and nephews to the con on Saturday to watch the costume parade.
Yeah.
And they didn't buy a badge, but they weren't doing anything there, but just showing up. And they'd maybe buy snacks at the food court, and they'd watch the costumes, and then...
They were cutting through. They can't get across because of the parade. They have to stay there.
Yeah, and so I want people to be able to enjoy that element. And there's going to be a lot of cosplayers. And I think it's cool because that might be the cornerstone that leads to the next year people going, hey, that con sold out. I kind of want to go. Maybe I'll buy my badge. The only thing that I didn't really like is the militant aspect of some people who were more like, I couldn't buy a badge. Well, screw everybody. I'm showing up anyways, and I'm gonna put out like a tent. And I'm just gonna like lounge around, and it's gonna be really crowded.
And you see, that's the part that annoys me is the entitled aspect of a lot of people that do that. I understand. I'll tell people all the time, hey, you know what? Even if you don't want to go play games or anything like that, go on a Saturday, hang around the Georgia Street entrance,
Mm-hmm.
You know, get some stuff at the food trucks, see the people milling around Georgia Street. If it's not too crowded, go on in. You're going to see all the costumers. They're in the main walk areas.
If you really,
But they can actually lock down the convention center.
they can.
I've actually had to go in to do some stuff with Visit Indy when they have had secure conventions in, and they've had to have somebody meet me at the door, walk me to the elevator, walk me up to their offices, and then walk me out.
Actually, for people who do show up at the con, just look at costumes. Right in front of the main entrance to the exhibition hall, there's a second floor. And it's got some crash space, like some couches, and just you can look down on the crowd. That's a great place where if you don't want to be obtrusive, just go up there, look at the costumes. You're not going to be bumped probably by people.
And that's also the area you can find some really good water coolers is back in the hallways back there.
What is it? 5-3-5-2-1. 5 hours of sleep, 2 meals a day, 1 shower. Although I prescribe to the drink water a lot. Please eat healthy. Don't if you eat a whole large pizza to yourself, 1, great job. I haven't managed that feat since my 20s. And 2, that's great too. Because it's a party. It's one big massive fun time. But maybe remember to hit all your food groups and be like, hey, I had a bunch of just really, really greasy hamburgers for lunch. Maybe have a salad with dinner, or hey, I've had 9 sodas today. For God's sake, have a lot of water.
Oh, I've got the Camelback here that I've got. This is my second one. And this says I've got this with a carabiner on it because I clip it to my bag when I'm walking around the con, and just whenever I see a water fountain, pull it off, fill it back up the water fountain, and just I'll empty this thing 5-6 times during the con.
I've had 4 friends who are in the armed forces who are serving the Marines or in the Army who bring their actual Camelbacks. And so they're just very, very chill. They'll be talking to you and just be like, yeah, so I was checking out the new Malifaux stuff. And hold on a second. There's that little hose from their backpack and just drink. It's like, how much do you have in there? Well, it holds a gallon. So I have about a little less than a gallon now. And to them, they're soldiers or Marines. I made that mistake recently and called a Marine a soldier, even though I knew better. It was a mistake, and I apologize. You don't do that. But no, then they're training for because for deployment. So for them, it's sort of hey, that's a gallon of water on your back. That's got to be 1.5 pounds. And they're like, I've got to lug around 60 pounds of my backpack and then a machine gun. No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
I've worn a proton pack before. Is that comparable?
I actually know a guy.
I was a Boy Scout and I did backpacking. Does that count?
There's a fair amount of
it doesn't count. I understand, my friends. Don't.
There's a fair amount of especially Air Force nerds. So I can only imagine that they're sort of no, that totally counts. That's who the problem is. Well, it's a proton pack, so it's not armed forces, but you count as city police department, sanitation services. No, it counts.
Well, it's off of Al's pack frame, and
I want one of those, one of the geek ones. I can't justify spending $500 on a backpack.
Spirit Halloween has what looks to be at least 90% scale Halloween costume version, about $70.
Mm-hmm.
Lights, sounds, and fresh coat of paint, and throw it on Alice pack, and you could probably have a fairly decent looking proton pack. I have some friends that have ordered them. I have not been able to order one myself because of the $450 recorder we are currently using.
Hey,
they were announced at San Diego Comic-Con 3 days after I bought this.
I got paid via PayPal recently for a big project, and I almost bought, and I still might buy, and I don't know why, a reproduction of a Confederate Lamat revolver. Because it's my favorite Civil War gun, and that's how nerdy someone is when they can go, my favorite gun from that time period is. But no, it's. I saw it online. Actually, I saw it at Dragon Con years ago, and I got to play with it. And I saw it online, and it was only $79. And I started thinking, oh, I could own it, and then I'll have a genuine reproduction of a Lamat revolver. And of course, anybody I tell that to just looks at me like, why? And all I could think of is, if someone breaks into my house, and maybe they'll think that I'm a member of Cobb's Legion. And
And you see, you're saying that, and I'm sitting here going, didn't there used to be a place that suited up Civil War reenactors over near Lafayette? Could you be able to just pick this up locally?
No, I used to know a couple of people who did reenacting, and they're serious people where they're like, this is my prop bayonet because my real bayonet, which my great uncle carried at the Battle of Bull Run, it's that one you don't use except for ceremony. And it's like, neat. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean to trivialize it, but it's just sort of a, how much...
Everyone's got their own thing they geek out on, and that's just the sort of thing that you look at and go, okay.
I play miniature games. I actually budgeted out what I'm spending at Gen Con, and a bunch of my friends were yelling at me because they're like, you're wasting money. Just order it on Miniature Market like 3 months after the con, and boom, it's cheaper. And I'm like, but I want the Game of Thrones miniature game now.
You see, well, for me, Gen Con is going to be Star Trek Adventures, mainly because I want to get it and I want to see how many of you guys that have worked on it I can get to sign the book. I kind of want that. Go ahead, get the red dice while I'm at it. Even though I'm very much for normally using Gen Con, is I see what I want to get, then I pick it up from a friendly local game shop later.
I know that Chris Birch.
I want to get.
I know Chris Birch and Nathan are going to be there. I don't really know if Sam Webb will be, but hopefully he will be.
Yeah, and Fezorama has a new Fez.
And I've seen you in your Fezes, so.
And I met Jason at the first Gen Con he was at, which I think was 3-4 years ago. And when he was part of the whole Entrepreneurs Alley and the focused entrepreneur people. And I told him that year, you need to come out with a Fez that screams something I want to wear as I'm doing blog stuff. The next year he did the anniversary Fez for Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, dang you. I didn't think you'd have it in a year, so that's how I got the Fez that you normally see me wearing at conventions. This year, he decided at the last minute to do a 50th anniversary Gen Con Fez, except this comes in either red or blue, and it has different pin. It's one of his normal style Fezes, so it's not like one color, one style tassel, a specific numbered pin to hold the tassel. I'm just like, so you've got a Fez that I need to buy, and you're making me do choices. You suck.
I'll have to recommend. I have a friend. His name's Sean McLean. He loves Fezes too. So
tell him to get over to Fezorama.
I own one Fez. A friend of mine. We used to go to the big discount warehouse auctions at Eastgate Mall.
Okay.
And they'd sell crates that were like repossessed from because people didn't pay the rent at like storage units. And they have like these discount crates that you buy blind. And he put it down for $12, and it was 50 Shriner Fezes. And so he's just handing them out. He's like, "You want a Fez? Here you go. You want a Fez? Here you go." So I have one Shriner Fez.
See, I have the black Fez with like the D12 and the dragon and the axe, and I have been called a Doctor Who cosplayer at the 1 year Wizard World was here. I was there, and because it was in the winter, I'm wearing like a green pea coat. I'm wearing one of my dress shirts with a TARDIS bow tie and that Fez. And someone said, "That's a great Doctor Who costume. Can I take your picture?" And I'm like, "Sure." And the person who has worked in Hollywood and the person that has done licensed props and has done costumes for years just started going, "This is nowhere near a Doctor Who, gosh." But I'm not going to say that to them. I'm not going to ruin their experience.
It's kind of the nice thing about Doctor Who, though, is that even though each one has their iconic look, that you could just be like, "No, I'm a Time Lord."
I was more upset that I wasn't carrying one of my sonic screwdrivers with me, but
I had 3. I only have 2 now. One broke.
One has come up missing. My 11th came up missing. I've got 10. I've got a river. Liz has got a river. And we're going to get another 11 and a 12 eventually. So
I have the War Doctors and 10s. I used to have 11s, but kids playing with it. And eventually they were having fun. It was one of those things where it broke and I was... Yeah, it was one of those things where it broke and I was mad. But then it was sort of a, how dare you play with a kid's toy that an adult put on his bookshelf?
Yeah.
Because, and also, also kind of recall the saying, yes, you can play with it. So, yeah. And it wasn't like they picked it up and used it as a hammer. It was just as they were playing with it. It slid off. The tabs holding the gray part on broke, and it slid off, and they yanked out wires.
Oh, okay.
And again, like I didn't see how exactly it broke, but I didn't hear them go, "Hey, we can use this to hammer nails." Clong, 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 clong.
You didn't hear the famous, "Hey, y'all, watch this."
No, in fact, kids are deadliest when they do it's silence.
Yes.
Because then you're either worried they're hurt or they're doing something bad. Because then you'll walk in the room and go, "Oh, you're looking at Amazon and you're using Instant Buy on what did you do?" They'll be like, "We just clicked the button and it worked," even though kids are clever. And there's a certain age, I'm going to say that age is 6 or 7, where they'll go, "I clicked the button and it worked. You can't get mad, right?" But then after that, like around 8, when no, they know what they're doing and they're going, "Click. It worked. It worked. Okay, go through my list. What do I want? What do I want? Click, click, click." And then when the adult enters the room, they're like, "Oh no, I'm a kid. You love me. Can't kill me." And then in their head, they're going, "My plan almost worked. I almost had all the Power Ranger stuff ever delivered. Next day shipping."
And for some reason, kids understand that when you say, "I brought you into this world, I can take you out." No, you can't.
Oh no, kids will give you a heart attack long before that'll happen, because there's nothing scarier than watching a kid take a dive from like somewhere high. Like I watched a kid, the bell tolls. I watched my youngest nephew Max. We were playing on top of hay, and he tripped and he actually fell about 5 feet. And he lands on the ground head first, and my heart stopped. And all I'm thinking of is having to explain things to my sister. It's like, did I kill him? Are we going to the ER? What's going on? And he picked himself up, and he had a little bit of a bruise on his head, but he picked himself up, and the kids ran by, and he immediately just started chasing after him. I called him over, and he was more annoyed that I stopped him from playing with his friends, because I'm like, "Let me look at your head. Do you have a subdural hematoma? Do we need to find you a doctor of surgery who could fix this?" And he's like, "I fell. It's 5 feet. If you fell, you'd be okay." Meanwhile, I'm an adult. I like stubbed my toe the other day, and I'm like, the whole day I'm walking around like some sort of war veteran going, "Oh, I kicked the sofa. Oh, woe is me. I've kicked a sofa."
You step on a D4, people think you're on fire.
D4's hurt, man.
But
Lego's hurt.
It's a callback. It was a callback. But, all right. So our short exit has taken 15 minutes. I see how this conversation
and we have
is
angered the
going.
ghosts. So,
but John, seriously, thanks for dropping by the Geek Cave tonight.
hey, no problem. This
Talking
was great.
a little bit about what you're working on.
Mhm.
This sucks. So far, I've been doing this. You're probably going to be one of the last ones I put up, because you're one of the last ones I've recorded. And
It sounded so ominous. Like, you'll be one of the last ones I put up because I'm taking you all with me. It's like, what's going on?
I like you the most, so I'm giving you the longest time left on this earth.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to do this again. I really
Sweet, definitely. No, this was a
So-
blast. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Okay, really appreciate it, man. And once again, I know you said it twice, but let's go ahead and close it out. Your name and where people can find you at Gen Con this year.
All right. I am John Douglas Kennedy. I am a tabletop game designer and author. And you can find me at the Third Eye Games booth, which will be attached to the Independent Game Designer Network, the IGDN booth at Gen Con. We'll be in the exhibition hall, and we're just looking forward to seeing everyone. And
being a social media person, I am a moron. Where can people find you online?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter.
Jeez.
JKMYTH, JKMyth. You can find me on Facebook. Generally, probably posting pictures about my cat or blabbering. Or you can find collections of my work either on DriveThruRPG. You can just search for authors on there, or at thirdeyegames.net.
All right, man. Well, thank you very much. And I will see you at Gen Con, and then we will talk in front of the microphones again.
Definitely. I'll see you at Gen Con.
I would like to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Indiana Geeking Podcast. You can find the blog post for this episode, as well as information like Hoosier convention listings, past podcast episodes, and more at indianageeking.com. If you like what I'm doing, there are ways you can help. First, you can make sure you subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Google Music, Stitcher, or whatever your preferred podcatcher is. Also, if your method allows it, I'd love it if you left me a rating and review. Good or bad, it lets me know how I'm doing. If you'd like to help financially, you can check out the Support Geeking in Indiana link posted at the side of the blog, or at the bottom if you're on mobile, where you can learn about how to support geeking by shopping through Amazon, making a one-time donation, making a monthly donation through Patreon, or even buying Indiana Geeking merchandise. Before we go, I'd like to give a huge thanks to my $5 and above patrons for supporting the blog and podcast. One of their perks is a shout out on the podcast, and I'm more than happy to give love to Kayla, Claire, Becca, Tommy, Mal, Tyler, and Spencer for their support. Last but certainly not least, I want to give a huge thanks to the local band's 5-year mission and the Shakeups for the music used in this episode. You can find track info on the blog post and find out more about the bands at 5yearmission.net and theshakeups.net accordingly. Thank you all for listening and your support. I'll see you next time, and always remember, live long and prosper, may the force be with you, and as always, be excellent to each other.